Alien Girl thought the human's calm pulse was a signal, but her real interpretation was healing. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The planet's atmosphere was thick with an icy chill as Erin, a tall, vibrant alien girl with glowing blue skin and bright violet eyes, struggled to breathe. The cold was unlike anything she had ever experienced, but it wasn't just the chill of the air. The emptiness that filled her heart was far colder. Her mission had failed, her comrades lost, and now, stranded alone in this unfamiliar world, she was just another casualty of a conflict she couldn't escape. As the cold winds whipped around her, she stood frozen, her breath visible in the air, her heartbeat erratic. She was used to battle, to danger, but this feeling was something she couldn't overcome. That's when he appeared. Lucas, a human with a calm demeanor, dressed in simple armor that looked out of place on such a harsh, alien planet, stepped toward her. He had heard the distress signal earlier, but what he didn't know was how deeply it had resonated with her. As he approached, Erin felt something unusual, his pulse. It was steady, almost soothing, and she thought for a moment it was a signal. A signal from a creature she had never encountered before. "Human," she whispered, her voice a mix of exhaustion and curiosity. Lucas didn't flinch or shy away. Instead, he knelt beside her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. His pulse, the steady rhythm that seemed to call out to her in the storm, made her wonder. Was he like her people? Or was there something fundamentally different about him? For a moment, Erin considered the possibility. Perhaps his calmness was an alien form of communication. Maybe his steady pulse was a message. She had read about Earth's creatures, humans, but she never imagined it would feel like this. Lucas didn't speak immediately. His actions were all that was needed. He opened his medical kit and began to tend to her wounds without a word. His touch was gentle but firm, as if he had been trained to heal, and somehow, the steady rhythm of his pulse seemed to stabilize her. Erin was confused. Was he showing her kindness? Was this just another trick? Yet, despite the confusion, she felt something stir inside her. A feeling she hadn't experienced in what felt like an eternity. Hope. His pulse, she realized, wasn't a signal of danger or control. It wasn't a way to assert dominance over her. It was simply the calming heartbeat of a human who, despite the chaos around them, remained grounded. As Lucas carefully tended to her, Erin felt her breath slowing, her own heartbeat beginning to align with his steady rhythm. She wasn't just being healed physically. Something deeper was happening. Her heart, battered from the years of war, of loss, began to feel something it had forgotten, a quiet peace. She wasn't sure how long it would last, or if it would lead anywhere, but for the first time since she'd arrived, Erin allowed herself to close her eyes, to trust that maybe, just maybe, this human was offering something far more important than survival. He was offering her the chance to heal. Lucas stayed silent, his hands steady as he finished tending to Erin's wounds. She felt the cool press of the bandages against her skin, a stark contrast to the scorching pain she had been enduring moments before. The storm outside howled, but inside, in this small moment of care, it felt like the world had slowed down. Her mind raced with questions, but her body refused to move. She couldn't deny the pull she felt toward the human who, without hesitation, had come to her aid. His calm demeanor was nothing like what she had expected from the species she had heard so much about. In her mind, humans were warriors, aggressive, eager to dominate and conquer. Yet, here he was, tending to her as if she were just another soul worth saving. She glanced at him, wondering if he could sense her thoughts. But Lucas remained focused on the task at hand, his movements precise and deliberate. His pulse, steady and rhythmic, was the anchor in this storm. Erin didn't know how to interpret it. She had always relied on her strength, her ability to protect herself, to fight. But now, in the face of his kindness, she felt vulnerable in a way she had never allowed herself to feel before. "You're not like the others," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Lucas paused, his hands stilling for just a moment as if considering her words. I'm just doing my job, he replied, his voice calm but warm. His words weren't dismissive. They weren't patronizing. They were simple, and in their simplicity, they carried a sincerity that made Erin's heart race. Your job? She asked, her voice thick with the weight of emotions she wasn't sure how to express. To help, he said, looking up at her with a soft smile. That's all. I don't need anything from you. Just your trust. Erin's breath caught. Trust. The word felt foreign in her mouth, a concept she had always avoided. For so long, she had trusted only herself, and even then, only reluctantly. But Lucas, he had shown her something she hadn't realized she was missing. I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore, she admitted, the vulnerability in her voice breaking through the walls she had built around herself. I've lost so much, and I don't know what's real anymore. Lucas nodded, his expression one of understanding, not pity. It's okay, he said, his voice low. You don't have to trust anyone right away. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Erin's eyes met his, and for the first time in a long while, she felt something shift inside her. A sense of hope, fragile and new, began to take root. It was a strange feeling, one she wasn't sure how to handle. For so long, she had been hardened by war, by the constant need to survive. But now, with Lucas's quiet presence, she found herself wondering if there was more to life than just surviving. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to trust again. The silence between them stretched, but it was a comfortable silence. Erin wasn't sure how long they sat there, the storm still raging outside, but the quiet in the room felt safe. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that safety could be real. As Lucas finished adjusting the last of the bandages, he gave her a reassuring smile. You're going to be okay, he said, as if the words were enough to make it true. Erin didn't respond at first. She couldn't. But deep inside, she felt something shift. A seed of hope had been planted, and for the first time, she wasn't sure how to stop it from growing. The next few days passed in a blur. Erin stayed in the small, dimly lit room Lucas had provided. The quiet hum of the storm outside a constant reminder of how fragile her world had become. Lucas remained by her side, never pushing for more than she was ready to offer. Always ready with a simple gesture of kindness, whether it was a warm meal or just a silent presence when words seemed too much. She found herself thinking about him more than she wanted to admit. It wasn't just his calm pulse, though it had drawn her in like a lifeline in the middle of the storm. It was his unwavering support, the way he treated her not as a weapon or a tool, but as a person. For the first time in a long while, Erin realized she was starting to trust him. Trust, such a simple word, but it felt heavy on her tongue. She hadn't allowed herself to trust anyone in years. Her past had taught her that trust was a luxury, one that could be used against her. But Lucas wasn't like anyone she had encountered before. He didn't seek anything from her except her recovery. And that made her wonder, what did that mean for her? One afternoon, Lucas approached her as she sat near the window, staring out at the endless white storm that still raged outside. You should rest, he said softly, his voice carrying a calm authority that had become familiar to her over the past few days. Erin looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time in a while. She had been avoiding it, unsure of what she might find there. But now, she saw only patience, understanding. I'm fine, she replied, her voice quieter than usual. I don't need to rest. Lucas didn't argue. Instead, he simply sat down across from her, his presence steady and comforting. You know, I've never been one to just rest, she said after a moment, her eyes shifting back to the storm. Always something to do. Always something to fix. Always somewhere to go. I understand, Lucas said, his voice warm but firm. But you've done enough. You've survived. Now it's time to heal. Erin didn't respond right away. Healing. The word felt foreign to her, as if it belonged to someone else, someone who hadn't seen the things she had, who hadn't felt the weight of war and loss. She wasn't sure she knew how to heal, not anymore. But something in his words made her consider it. Maybe it wasn't about fixing everything all at once. Maybe it was just about allowing herself to breathe, to feel something other than the constant pressure of survival. You're not like the others, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The others would have expected me to fight, to survive. But you. She trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. Lucas didn't push her. I just want you to be okay, he said quietly. The simplicity of his words, the raw sincerity, made something inside her shift. She wasn't sure if it was hope or just the absence of the constant weight she had carried for so long. But in that moment, she felt lighter. Not fixed, not healed, not yet, but lighter somehow. She hadn't realized how much she had been holding on to until now. "I've never had someone care like this," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion she wasn't used to showing. Lucas gave her a soft smile, but it was his eyes that spoke louder than anything. They were filled with something she couldn't place. Kindness, yes, but also a quiet understanding. "You don't have to carry everything alone." Those words, simple as they were, hit Erin harder than she expected. For so long, she had carried the weight of her past, of her mistakes, of her survival, all by herself. And now, here was a human who, without asking for anything in return, was offering her something she hadn't known she needed: help. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She wasn't sure what would come next. There was still a part of her that wanted to run, to retreat back into the shell she had built for so many years. But for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to. For the first time, she allowed herself to be vulnerable, to accept that maybe healing wasn't something she had to do alone. Maybe, just maybe, it was okay to trust again. Days passed, and the small cabin where Lucas and Erin stayed became a place of quiet routine. Erin had slowly begun to adjust, though the weight of her past never fully left her. The storm outside had not let up, but the storm inside her was calming, bit by bit. She found herself spending more time with Lucas, observing his calm presence. Every day, he would check on her, ensuring she had what she needed, and though he never pushed her to talk, his presence spoke louder than words. It was a kindness she wasn't used to. Erin had never truly known what it felt like to be cared for without strings attached. Her life had always been about survival, about moving from one day to the next. But now, in the quiet of Lucas's company, she was starting to understand something else. Maybe it was okay to let go of the weight she had carried for so long. Lucas never questioned her silence. He simply accepted it, and that acceptance was all she needed. There was no pressure, no expectation to explain her past. He didn't demand answers. He just gave her space, the one thing she had never allowed herself. As the days stretched on, she started to feel something stir inside her. It wasn't a clear thought or a specific idea. It was more like the first rays of sunlight breaking through a long, dark night. There was warmth there, but it was still faint. It was trust, but trust that wasn't fully formed yet, fragile and delicate. One evening, after the storm had finally begun to subside, Lucas sat beside her as they watched the sky slowly clear. The first stars began to appear, faint at first, but gradually more visible as the darkness receded. "It's beautiful," Erin said quietly, her eyes fixed on the stars above. "I never thought I would find a place like this. Somewhere peaceful." Lucas looked at her, his expression soft. "Sometimes peace finds us when we stop looking for it so hard," he said. Erin turned her head to meet his gaze. There was no judgment there, only a quiet understanding that made her heart beat a little faster. "Do you really believe that?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "I think I do," Lucas said with a smile, though it was a small one. "I think we all need to stop running. Stop fighting for a moment, and just let ourselves heal." Erin felt something shift inside her, a flicker of a thought that felt strange but right. Could she really stop running? Could she let go of the fear that had kept her going all these years? She didn't know yet, but for the first time, she was starting to wonder if it was possible. "I don't know if I can stop fighting," she admitted. "It's all I've ever known." Lucas nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You don't have to stop everything all at once. Healing doesn't work like that. It's a process. You take it one step at a time." Erin let out a long breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders eased just a little. Maybe he was right. Maybe she didn't have to have all the answers right now. Maybe, for once, she could just be here, in this moment, and let herself feel something other than the constant need to survive. The night stretched on, and the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was calm, like the gentle stillness of a world finally settling after a long storm. Erin found herself leaning back, staring up at the stars, the faint warmth from Lucas's presence beside her grounding her in a way she hadn't expected. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself hope. Maybe this wasn't just about survival anymore. Maybe, just maybe, this could be about living. The days grew warmer as the storm outside finally began to subside. Erin felt a sense of quiet settle over the cabin, though her mind was still filled with questions. She spent her time with Lucas, observing him as he moved through the tasks of daily life with the same calm focus he had shown from the start. She was starting to understand that he wasn't just kind because it was part of his nature. He chose to be kind. It wasn't easy for her to accept, but she couldn't deny the impact it had on her. Every interaction with him, every small gesture, seemed to peel away the layers of the walls she had built around herself. The more time she spent in his presence, the more she realized that she wasn't just recovering physically. She was starting to heal emotionally, too. One afternoon, as they sat together in the now quiet cabin, Lucas spoke up. "You've been quiet lately," he said, his voice soft but observant. Erin looked up, her violet eyes meeting his. "I'm just thinking," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "About everything." Lucas nodded, not pushing her to elaborate. "Thinking can be good," he said simply, "but it doesn't always help to keep everything inside. Sometimes you have to let it out." Erin felt a flicker of something inside her. Let it out. She had always kept her feelings, her thoughts, buried deep. It was safer that way. But now, for some reason, Lucas's words resonated with her. She had never truly allowed herself to feel everything she had been through. The loss, the betrayal, the loneliness. It had all been buried under layers of survival, of getting through each day. But now, in this quiet moment, she felt the weight of it all. "I don't know how to let it out," Erin admitted softly, her voice almost a whisper. "It's all I've known, just pushing it down." Lucas gave her a gentle smile, his eyes filled with understanding. "You don't have to do it all at once," he said. "You take it one step at a time. I'm not going anywhere, Erin. You're not alone in this." His words were simple, but they held a quiet strength that Erin had never known before. She wasn't used to hearing such things, and even now, part of her wanted to pull away, to hide behind the walls she had spent so long building. But another part of her, a part she had forgotten, was beginning to believe him. Maybe it was possible to let someone in. Maybe it was okay to be vulnerable, to ask for help. Erin had always been strong, always had to be. But Lucas's unwavering support was slowly showing her that strength didn't always mean doing everything on your own. There was strength in asking for help, in trusting someone else. Over the next few days, Erin began to slowly open up. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the fear of vulnerability almost overwhelmed her. But with Lucas by her side, it felt a little less frightening. He never rushed her. He simply listened, patiently, as she spoke about her past, her fears, and her hopes for the future. It was a slow process, and there were moments of silence between them, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a silence that allowed her to breathe, to process what she had been through. Slowly, she began to see the possibility of something more than just survival. She could feel herself changing, opening up to a future she had never considered before. It wasn't just about getting through the next day. It was about living again, truly living. And with Lucas's support, Erin realized that maybe, just maybe, she could learn to trust again, to believe that healing was possible. The road ahead would not be easy, and there would be setbacks. But for the first time in a long while, Erin felt like she was moving towards something better, something worth fighting for. As the weeks went by, Erin began to feel something within her shift, something that felt new and unfamiliar. She was used to living in a constant state of alertness, always ready to fight, always looking over her shoulder. But with Lucas, things were different. There was no need for constant vigilance. She could simply be. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she allowed herself to enjoy the quiet moments, the small moments of peace. It wasn't that she didn't still feel the weight of her past. It was there, lurking in the corners of her mind, waiting for the right moment to surface. But for now, she let it rest. And in the space that was created, she felt something else begin to bloom, trust. It was a slow process, one that required her to face the very things she had spent years running from. But with Lucas by her side, it didn't feel so impossible. One morning, as they sat together having breakfast, Lucas looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice low and gentle. Erin met his gaze, surprised by the weight of his words. She hadn't realized it, but she had. She wasn't the same person she had been when she first arrived. There was a softness to her now, a willingness to open up, to trust. And though it scared her, it also felt right. "I'm not sure I even know who I am anymore," Erin said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't know if I'll ever fully heal from everything I've been through." Lucas's smile was small but genuine. "Healing doesn't happen all at once," he said. "It's a journey, and it's okay if it takes time. What matters is that you're on the path." Erin looked down at her hands, the quiet hum of the cabin filling the space between them. She wasn't sure if she fully believed him, but there was something in his words that made her want to try. It was a strange feeling, hope. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to hope, to believe that things could be different. But now, with Lucas by her side, it didn't seem so impossible. "I'm scared," Erin admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of what happens next. I don't know how to move forward." Lucas reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. His touch was warm, grounding. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," he said. "You just have to take the next step. That's all anyone can do." Erin met his gaze again, and for the first time in a long while, she felt something stir inside her. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was something else, something she couldn't quite name, but it felt like the beginning of something new, something worth fighting for. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice catching in her throat. Lucas gave her a small nod, his eyes soft with understanding. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "We're in this together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." For the first time in what felt like forever, Erin believed him. The weight of her past wasn't gone, but it wasn't controlling her anymore. She wasn't defined by it. She was moving forward, one small step at a time, and with Lucas by her side, she was beginning to understand that maybe, just maybe, healing was possible. The following days felt different for Erin. She found herself more at ease in Lucas's presence, her once tightly guarded walls beginning to crack, even if just a little. It wasn't easy to let go of the instincts that had kept her safe for so long, but each small act of kindness from Lucas made it a little easier to breathe, a little easier to trust. There were still moments when the past tried to claw its way into her mind, whispering doubts and fears. But each time those thoughts crept up, she reminded herself that she didn't have to carry them alone anymore. Lucas was here. They were in this together. They spent their days talking about the worlds they had come from, the battles they had fought, the losses they had endured. Erin listened intently to Lucas's stories, his experiences of Earth, a place so different from the war-torn world she had known. In his words, she could hear the warmth, the hope that was so often missing in her own voice. But it wasn't just the stories that made her feel like she was starting to heal. It was the simple moments, the quiet moments when words weren't necessary. A shared look, a quiet meal, a cup of tea in the early morning, as they sat together and watched the sun rise. There was a new comfort in those moments, a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in so long. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the stars appear in the sky above them, Erin found herself speaking without thinking. "I never thought I would find peace again," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas turned to look at her, his gaze steady and warm. "And now you've found it?" he asked gently. Erin nodded, though the words felt strange in her mouth. "Maybe not fully," she admitted, "but I'm starting to understand that peace doesn't mean the absence of pain. It means allowing yourself to feel it, to face it, and then moving through it." Lucas's smile was small but filled with understanding. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice full of quiet pride. Erin looked up at the sky again, feeling the weight of his words. She wasn't sure if she would ever fully be free from the shadows of her past, but she knew now that she didn't have to be. Healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about accepting it, living with it, and finding a way to move forward despite it. She felt something shift inside her, something she had long since forgotten. Hope. It wasn't a bright, blinding light that chased away all the darkness. It was quieter than that, softer. But it was there, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't afraid of it. She turned to Lucas, her eyes searching his for a moment. "I don't know what's going to happen next," she said softly. "But for the first time, I think I'm ready to find out." Lucas didn't speak immediately. Instead, he simply nodded, his hand resting gently on hers. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "we'll face it together." The silence between them was comfortable, filled with understanding. Erin wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to face it. With Lucas by her side, she knew she could take the next step, no matter how uncertain it might be. The days passed in a peaceful rhythm. Erin had started to embrace the calm that Lucas had offered her. For so long, she had lived in a world defined by chaos, by constant fighting, and the fear of never knowing what came next. But now, for the first time, she felt the weight of that burden lifting. She was still healing, still learning how to live with the scars of her past, but each day with Lucas felt like a step forward. They spent more time together, sharing stories, walking in the surrounding landscape, and sometimes just sitting in the quiet, enjoying each other's presence. Erin found herself starting to open up more, sharing thoughts and feelings she had locked away for so long. She talked about her people, the war, and the choices she had been forced to make. Lucas listened patiently, never judging, always understanding. In return, Lucas shared more of his own experiences, about Earth, about his life before he had found himself on this alien world. As she listened, Erin realized just how much they had in common, despite the vast differences between their worlds. One evening, as they sat watching the stars, Lucas turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You've changed," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. Erin met his gaze, surprised by the weight of his words. "I don't know if I have," she said softly. "I feel different, but I don't know if that's a change, or just something I've been too afraid to face until now." Lucas smiled gently. "I think it's a change for the better." Erin felt a warmth spread through her at his words. She had always been afraid of change, afraid of letting go of the past. But now, with Lucas by her side, it didn't seem so terrifying. In fact, it felt like a possibility she had never considered. "I never thought I would be here," Erin admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I would find peace. I always thought it was something for others, not for someone like me." Lucas reached out, placing his hand over hers. "It's not just for others. It's for you too, Erin. Peace doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means finding a way to live with what you've been through and still moving forward." Erin looked down at their hands, feeling the steady pulse of Lucas's touch, grounding her in the moment. She had been running for so long, running from her past, from the pain, from the fear. But now, for the first time, she felt like she could stop. Not because everything was perfect, but because she was learning to accept it. And with Lucas by her side, she knew she wasn't alone anymore. "I'm ready to move forward," Erin said, her voice firm with a new determination. "I don't know what the future holds, but I'm not afraid of it anymore." Lucas gave her a reassuring smile. "I'll be with you every step of the way," he said. Erin returned his smile, feeling the truth of his words settle deep in her heart. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of hope rise within her. It wasn't a grand, sweeping hope. It wasn't about changing the world or fixing everything. It was about learning to live, truly live, in the face of all that had happened. And with that small, quiet hope, Erin knew she was ready for whatever came next. The seasons shifted in the quiet cabin, and with each passing day, Erin found herself feeling more at peace. The storms outside had long since faded, replaced by warm sunlight that bathed the landscape in golden hues. Inside, Erin and Lucas continued their simple, quiet life, each day bringing new moments of connection. They talked less about the past and more about the future, about what they wanted, about the life they could build. For Erin, it was a revelation. For so long, she had lived in the shadows of war and loss, but now, she was starting to understand the possibility of something more. Lucas, always patient and kind, never pressured her to move faster than she was ready. It wasn't about rushing toward some ideal future. It was about taking things one day at a time, learning to be present, to enjoy the quiet moments. There were times when Erin would catch herself smiling without thinking, when she would laugh at something Lucas said, or simply enjoy the feel of the sun on her skin. It was a strange sensation, this peace, but one she had never realized she was missing until now. One morning, as they worked together to prepare breakfast, Lucas turned to her with a small, teasing grin. "You're looking happier these days," he said, his tone light. Erin paused, a spoon in her hand, and looked at him, surprised. "Am I?" she asked softly. "I didn't realize." Lucas laughed softly. "It's hard not to notice. You've got this lightness about you now. It's a good thing." Erin smiled, the warmth in her chest spreading. She didn't know how to explain it, this sense of contentment that was starting to settle inside her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't weighed down by the past. She wasn't constantly fighting to survive. She was just living. I think I'm starting to believe it, she said, her voice quiet but steady. That I can be happy. That I can be free. Lucas nodded, his smile softening. You've always been free, Aaron. You just had to let yourself see it. The words settled in her heart, and she felt something stir inside her. It wasn't a loud, overwhelming feeling. It was quiet, almost like a whisper, but it was there, real and steady. She had always thought freedom was something she had to fight for, something she had to earn. But now, she was beginning to see that it was about letting go. Letting go of the fear, the past, the burden she had carried for so long. Thank you, she said, her voice soft with emotion. For everything. For showing me that there's more than just survival. Lucas reached out, taking her hand in his. You don't have to thank me, he said gently. I'm just glad I could be here with you, helping you see what I've always seen. They stood there for a moment, hand in hand, the quiet of the morning wrapping around them like a soft blanket. Aaron realized that, for the first time, she wasn't afraid of the future. She wasn't afraid of what was to come. With Lucas by her side, she knew that no matter what came next, she was ready. Ready to live, to heal, and to embrace the possibility of a life that was hers to create. It was a new beginning, one she had never imagined, but one she was finally ready to embrace.